Alaska does not have an NFL team, so Senator Sullivan rightly, in God's good order, roots for the Browns. The draft is tomorrow night. Congress, Senator, who do you want the Brownies to pick?
Well, you know, Hugh, for the longest time, we needed a franchise quarterback, right? But I think, wouldn't you agree? I think we have one.
We do?
Finally?
Well, Jimmy Haslam this morning said he will get the long-term extension. Baker will. It's just up to Andrew Berry to figure out when. So I am very confident he's going to be our quarterback for 15 years.
So I think that's the number one issue, right? We've been looking for a franchise quarterback since Bernie Kosar. And, I think picking up somebody, particularly on the defensive line, could still be helpful. But I have not focused exactly on the individuals. I just like the fact that the Browns have now settled on a franchise quarterback.
I'm with you.
That's the most important thing.
There's a great DT out of Alabama who may fall to us, but I'd like a cornerback. We can come back to that. Senator, you're on armed services. I want to talk to you about John Kerry, but first, the Biden administration has sent up a nominee for the Army and a nominee for the Air Force. You do not yet have a naval secretary up there, and we are losing the war at sea with China, the competition at sea at China. What is the deal? Why do we not have a secretary for the Navy nominated by Team Biden? Is it not a priority for them?
Well, look, they need to get moving on that. Unlike when President Trump was in office, and the Democrats tried to block and delay everybody on the DoD side. At this point during the Trump administration, there was only Mattis confirmed. Right now, Biden has his secretary, deputy secretary, and unfortunately yesterday his undersecretary. I went to the floor and spoke very much against the Undersecretary of Defense that was confirmed last night. But we will take whoever they put forward, scrub them, and make sure that they're going to do what we think is in America's national interest. But you're right, Hugh, the Secretary of the Navy, hugely important. Ken Braithwaite, Trump's last secretary, was very good. Secretary Spencer was very good. So we've had two good secretaries of the Navy, but we need one soon, especially with what's going on in China. And by the way, we'll get to it. John Kerry set us back years on the South China Sea when he was Secretary of State, as you probably know, was totally against doing freedom of navigation operations and argued strongly against that during the Obama years. Why? Because he thought it would hurt China's feelings and they might leave the Paris Climate Accords. That is not a joke. That's a true story. We didn't do fawn ops for over 2 years because of that guy.
I'm coming up to talk to Joby Warwick about his excellent must-read new book, Red Line, Senator. If you haven't read it, as a Marine, former intel officer in the United States Marine Corps, no former Marines, but used to do intel and you know your way around Syria and Iraq and that area, you're going to love Red Line by Joby Warwick, and the Kerry role in that is not very good either. Let me play for you to begin our conversation about John Kerry, and good news on the Navy Sec. I hope you get that. You push your Dem colleagues to get a navalist in there and building, because we're falling behind. I mean, way behind. 2 years ago, Secretary Kerry came on this show. We had a nice conversation. We have a lot in common, a lot of friends in common. And he wrote a memoir. I may be the only person in America that read every page. I asked him this, and we had this exchange 2 years ago.
Okay. It's been reported you've met with him a couple of times, at least since leaving office as well.
Yes,
so
I have. That's accurate.
Is it a half dozen times, a dozen times?
No. I've met with him at a conference in Norway. I think I saw him in a conference in Munich and at the World Economic Forum. So I've probably seen him 3 or 4 times.
Are you trying to coach him through the Trump administration's rejection of the JCPOA?
No, that's not my job, and my coaching him would not. That's not how it works. What I have done is tried to elicit from him what Iran might be willing to do in order to change the dynamic of the Middle East for the better. How does one resolve Yemen? What do you do to try to get peace in Syria? Those are the things that really are preoccupying, because those are the impediments.
All right, so that's enough. Senator Sullivan, the entire hour of my conversation with John Kerry is posted at my podcast, The Interview with Hugh Hewitt. But we're talking about Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, and it turns out that the New York Times leaked to Iran International, a Persian television channel, a long interview with that foreign minister in which he reveals that John Kerry told him Israel had attacked Iranian targets in Syria, dozens, if not 100 times. What did you make of that leak? What did you make of Zarif's comments? I saw your speech on the Senate. Just fill us in on your view of this.
Well, look, even the interview that he did with you, personally, it makes me sick. And here's why. We're not talking about the foreign minister of Canada here. We're talking about the foreign minister of the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. And Hugh, the one issue that for 6 years in my first term as U.S. Senator, I tried to bring to the floor all the time, these guys, Zarif, Soleimani, have the blood of American service members on their hands. With their sophisticated IEDs that they gave to the Iraqi Shia militias, they killed and wounded over 2,000 Americans, our best and brightest. So this is a killer and a terrorist. I went to the Senate floor Monday as soon as I saw that New York Times report and demanded his resignation or for him to be fired by Biden if these allegations are true. And look, I think they're true. As he said to you, he met with Zarif many times. What the hell is he doing meeting with Zarif many times? In 2018, he was clearly trying to undermine President Trump's diplomacy in the Middle East, which has worked out so well with the Abraham Accords. Zarif even said he was, quote, astonished that Kerry would reveal what is secret information about one of our most important allies in the world, Israel, in helping give a leg up to certainly our biggest enemy in the world, in my view, Iran, given their history. So I have asked for an investigation, but I have said, and trust me, there's a lot of senators that are following my lead. If this is true, he needs to resign or be fired. Right now, the guy is a member of Biden's National Security Council, so he's got to go.
Senator, I do not know if Secretary Kerry is obliged to appear before any panel of the Senate because while he has, I am told, offices in the West Wing, the State Department, and the Pentagon in an unprecedented triple play of authority. I really believe he's sort of the de facto president with the most juice in the room whenever he shows up because I don't think President Biden particularly has the energy to do this job, but we'll see tonight. Nevertheless, I don't think he is liable to be summoned, is he? He doesn't appear anywhere because he got a West Wing office.
He's not, and remember, he was not confirmed by the U.S. Senate for any of these positions, so that's another reason it's hard to summon him. I have trust me, I'm talking to all my Senate colleagues about this. Even a couple of Democrat senators have said, look, we got to get to the bottom of this, but we're going to keep the pressure on this issue. It is, Zarif said he was astonished. I was astonished. I think John Kerry was probably our country's worst Secretary of State ever, the grand appeaser of Iran. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we were pressing our Navy, our Department of Defense, to do freedom of navigation operations when Xi Jinping was starting to build up the South China Sea reefs. We didn't do that. The reason I found out later was in principals meetings, John Kerry was the number one proponent of not doing anything because he thought it would tick off the Chinese and they might pull out of their Paris climate commitments, which are decades in the future. You can't make this stuff up, Hugh. And I'll tell you one other thing. Our adversaries, whether it's Iran or China, when they see him out on the world stage, it gives them pleasure. Why? Because they know they can use him to his advantage. Kerry was just in Beijing. And our allies don't trust him. But here's
we've got a minute, Senator. I want to ask you a key question. Those 2,000 Americans killed or wounded, have any of them sought to sue the Islamic Republic of Iran in the way that the parents of the deceased hostage in Korea won a massive judgment against that regime, which has no assets? If these Americans who are injured by Iranian IEDs sue, I believe there are assets to seize. Has that happened? Do you know?
I do not know if that has happened, but I think it would be a good idea. And I'll tell you this, one of the things that we did, our great military, the Trump administration, when we killed Soleimani, is that we reestablished deterrence in the Middle East with regard to Iran. You know how hard that is to do, Hugh. We said, hey, if you kill Americans, guess what? You're going to pay a high price. We had not done that in years, and that's one of the many reasons why taking that guy out was so important.
Zarif himself said that in the interview that was leaked. It was a strategic blow to the Islamic Republic. Senator Dan Sullivan.